Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. In today's episode I'll be going over in depth what I did to fit a VQ35 DE into this 280Z. Stay tuned. So you want to VQ swap your car. What do you need? What's it going to take? Well, I've done a couple of them and I'm here to tell you it's really not that hard, and I hope a lot more people do them. I've compiled a short list here of things off the top of my head that I can remember that I did with my VQ swaps in the past. I'm sure more information will come as I'm filming this, as my ADHD likes to run. So please bear with me and enjoy. So step one, you're going to need to get all the parts, all the pieces that you're going to need. And your best option is going to be getting a donor car. Getting a donor car means all the pieces that you will need are there and available when you need them. So the worst option, let's see. Something like a Facebook part out, right? Buying a car that they pulled the motor and the trans already on. Buying a motor and transmission from an importer. A lot of people like to do this, and it's fine, but the issues there are you don't quite know the history of the motor. You don't know the compression numbers half the time, so it's good to get a whole donor car. You really get to see the history of the car. You get to, in a lot of cases, see it running and driving. So the worst option is going to be something like a Facebook part out. On the list of things that we're going to need for our VQ swap, you're going to need the engine and transmission setup to begin with. You're going to want a complete motor with all the accessories. I haven't used air conditioning on any of my cars, but it's not undoable. We're trying to put AC on an S14 HR swap that we're doing right now. Next, you're going to need the whole harness and ECU. And you need the ECU, and you're going to have to ship it or learn how to do it yourself. NATS delete. NATS is Nissan's security system. It's kind of like the Honda immobilizer, and essentially it's a CAN bus system that talks to the body control module and says, "Hi, yes, the key is in, and I'm a Nissan 350Z." And the engine goes, "Hi, yes, I'm an engine for a 350Z, and we're ready to start," and the engine starts. When you put the key in the ignition on your freshly swapped VQ swap, and you go to start it, and you haven't done a NATS delete, you're going to put your ignition in, and your ECU is going to go, "Hi, I'm a Nissan engine, where's my body harness?" No body harness, no signal, it's not going to start. So, there's a couple companies you can send it to. I believe Hexa Garage, there's a guy, Eric, on Facebook. I can't remember his last name off the top of my head. And then there's Jason. I'll link his Instagram. Those are the three people I know off the top of my head that do NATS deletes, and they do really well. I had my ECU done by Jason. He did a NATS delete, a tune, more timing, and throttle response, drive-by-wire adjustments. And I absolutely love it. It feels amazing. So, next on our list, you're going to need the throttle pedal and the pigtail harness from the donor car or whatever car you get it out of. As long as it matches the ECU and engine year that you got out of, you want to kind of try and keep all the years the same. I believe there are variants from Nissan Z to Nissan G from 2000 to 2006, 2003 to 2006. So really, you want to stick to the same year, otherwise you might end up buying the wrong throttle pedal. And Ultima and Centro throttle pedals don't work. I looked, they're wrong. Unless maybe you wire that pigtail. I don't know. You're going to need a fuel pressure regulator. You can go, I went with an aftermarket fuel pressure regulator. You can get them for like $100, Summit Racing, Jags, I mean, all sorts of suppliers sell them. Any fuel pressure regulator that can do at least 40 PSI is going to be adequate for this job. The VQ35 does static fuel pressure at 43 to 45 PSI, I believe, so that means no vacuum line going to the actual fuel pressure regulator, so there's no modification to the fuel pressure. You're going to need motor mounts or a swap kit. You can either make them or buy them. They're all kind of people make motor mounts. I don't know them off the top of my head. You do you. Okay, you're going to need custom exhaust. A lot of the times the exhaust doesn't fit when it comes to swapping a VQ. On a DE Rev Up, I chopped the header collector off and was able to fit the manifolds, the stock manifolds, and I just kind of made an extra long header collector. A lot of people run ISR swap headers with the ISR Y pipe. That works really well. So just kind of do your research and figure out what will work best for you and your budget. Next, you're going to need a custom length drive shaft. Your best bet is to get a 350Z drive shaft and to take your stock drive shaft. So whether it's like a 280Z, I took my 350Z drive shaft and my 280Z drive shaft. I took my drive shaft to Driveline and Gear and I said, hi, I need the 350Z yoke on the 280Z shaft with the 280Z rear differential flange. And they said, cool, it'll be like $300-400, and they cut it, balanced it, and had it for me in like 2 days. So custom and to length, you give them the measurement. Or you can buy a swap drive shaft for about $500. And last on our list is kind of a broad subject. The cooling system, you're swapping a motor, so you're going to need a cooling system that is up to par with that engine, along with custom piping. So the VQ just has weird water pipes and outlets in different locations, and if you're running a heater core, you'll need to run custom pipes and water lines to the heater core, because the VQ is kind of weird and has each heater core line on each side of the motor, and the 350Z is the same way. And most cars have the heater core lines too in the same location. So you'll need to do a lot of custom cooling system modifications to your car in order to accept the VQ. From the factory, the VQ gets air pockets in the cooling system, so there are a lot of, on the actual heater hoses, there are T-bleeder valves, and in other various locations on the motor. So when I did my VQ swaps, I make sure to put bleeders in certain locations, and I'll show you when we swap over to my car. So that's pretty much the list of most of the things that you'll need. It's very broad. Every swap is custom. Everybody's going to run into custom things. You're going to need to custom wire your harness into your car or buy a plug-and-play VQ harness to your chassis harness, which not a lot of people are making right now. So this is all kind of like fabrication stuff, so hopefully we're all on the same page. It's not a cookie cutter plug and play. Can't just put it in. Yeah. Anyway, let's get going. Okay, so for the remainder of this video, I'm going to switch over to my car. So we'll be specific to a 280Z. Okay. So this is a VQ35 DE rev up out of an 06 convertible 350Z. Has a manual transmission, CD09. I had to custom modify the subframe to fit. From underneath, you can see from here all the way across to over there, I actually notched the subframe out, replated it. I have some photos. I'll see if I can insert the photos right now of the process. And I actually filmed the process of me notching this subframe. I'll see if I have the footage still, and I'll release a video later on how I did that. I came over here to this side. You can kind of see more of the notch. I kind of honestly over-notched it, but plenty of space here. Okay? Up top here we can see, I'll pull this out of the way. This car's not finished. It's more or less I'm in the building stage, getting everything mocked up and ready, and once it's done, I'll blow it all apart and paint it. But you can kind of see, I didn't touch the firewall at all. I didn't modify, all I did was I removed the factory hood latch mount that was there. Okay. And I've got our intake manifold very close. I can almost fit my finger between it. Now the exhaust is just temporary, but the end result will be very similar to, this is just some catalytic converters I had, but the end result will be 2 high-performance catalytic converters into a Y pipe, into a resonator, and then I have a catback system for it as well. But I will be remaking all of that and videoing it. Something I forgot to mention, you guys, the last thing I think, is you may or may not need a shifter relocation kit. So we'll come over to my car and I'll show you what I'm talking about. But on a CD09 transmission, the shifter output on a 280Z would probably end up about where the lip of this cup holder is. Sorry, ashtray. So I'm running a GK Tech kit. Okay, let me get down under here. Okay, under here you can see, got my drive shaft here nice and gray from the place that built it. And you can see this black framing, this custom piece here. This is all the GK Tech shifter housing, and it's actually super short. I don't know if it's, I don't think it's the shortest one on the market. I think it's just shortened by a certain amount. You can check on their website what it is, but I found that this kit works really well on the Z car and on the 240SXs. Underneath here, I can kind of show you too on the exhaust. I just used the factory manifold and cut and relocated where the collector flange is. It's really hard to angle down under here. So I relocated the flange because I think from the factory it's like right here and in the way. So I just relocated it. Same thing on this side. I think I even redid the O2 sensor bung as well. Oh wow, we really can't see on this side. Yeah, there's the O2 sensor. Wow. No focus? No focus. Okay, you don't get to see. I'm sorry. It is. Okay, so under the passenger side here, you can see I cut the stock manifold, I believe. This is the stock manifold over here. And then this is like a 90-degree elbow S-bend with a flange that I made. And then I just put the O2 sensor in there as well with a bung. Okay. Okay, so for fuel system on your VQ35DE rev up, this is rev up specific because I believe DEs and HRs are different. It's like same but different. So just kind of take this information as guide and not as truth, just kind of as opinion. This guy here is not a fuel pressure regulator. This is a pulse dampener. If you take this off, there is no resistance between this, so you can use this. This has a like a high pressure crimped OEM line on it from the factory. So you can actually slice it with a razor blade and pull it off and reveal this nipple that you can attach your fuel line to. This goes down over into here, and that's your fuel rail. Okay. Same thing, if you ever much so wanted, you can cut right here and run your fuel pressure hose there. Okay. Unfortunately, on my car, I don't have the fuel pressure regulator in right now. I'm actually letting a friend borrow it for his HR swap to get it running. But I will see if I can link a photo of it right here and how I have it hooked up and exactly kind of how I was explaining it earlier. For the cooling system, I'm running this is a Mishimoto 240Z, 280Z radiator kit. This is just a shroud I made with a 16-inch fan that runs off a relay off of a temp switch. I had to make these pipes because the outlets on this motor are reversed to the motor that originally came in this car that this radiator is designed for. And I no longer have a TIG welder, so I can't just swap my aluminum outlets. So I made some ugly little pipes, and it works. I don't have the heater core in right now, so I just have this heater core bypass hose. But when I am finished, there will be a heater core. The heater core is in, I just don't have it hooked up. So there'll be 2 ports here that this line will run to, and then so one will have to come from this side to here, right? This hose will run along behind and go into the heater core, and then this hose will come up and go into the heater core. I don't recall which ones are in and out right now off the top of my head, but each hose is going to have a little T-fitting with a bleeder so that when you're filling the cooling system, your bleeders you can get all the air pockets out of these motors. These motors are notorious for having air pockets. And you can kind of see, I don't know for sure, I think the intake manifold is higher than the radiator cap. I don't know for sure if there's any cooling ports that are higher than my radiator cap, but I do highly recommend running something like a swirl pot. If anybody, I'm not really going to go into detail what much about a swirl pot is. Wow, that was a handful of a sentence. I'm not going to go too full into detail about what a swirl pot is, but I do plan on running one on this car. If I keep this motor, I may swap to a different motor. We'll see in the future what it holds. I have a VQ37 VHR that I'm thinking about. I'm thinking about putting this in this. Caged drift car, okay. So this is a rev up. I'm thinking about taking this out and putting a 37 VHR in, but the problem is I don't have a transmission for it right now. So I'm not sure if that's the plan that I want to go with yet, but that is a really good idea that I got popping around in my head. Just a quick tangent. When it comes to the VQ35 DEs and rev ups especially, they got some oiling issues. It's very recommended to run a catch can. So this is just a standard catch can I've got running from my passenger side PCV breather to the catch can and then to the intake manifold. And there's actual baffles and filtration in there as well. Alright, so I got my interior pulled out, and I'm not going to go into full detail on how I wired the VQ swap in this video. I'll leave it for another video, and frankly it's just because I don't quite remember off the top of my head, and I'm not going to sit here and fumble with trying to remember. So I'll leave it for another video. Things you will need, like I was saying before, this is your OBD2 connector. This came out of that car. This came out of the donor car. This is the ECU I have mounted right here on the top of my tunnel. This is the 350Z drive-by-wire gas pedal, and this is the harness, right? Focus is kind of giving me a hard time. So you're going to need to extend the throttle pedal harness for the so you're going to need to extend the harness for the throttle pedal because it's probably not going to be anywhere close to where your throttle pedal is half the time. So it's just good practice to extend it a couple feet. There are a couple relays that I have. I believe one is for the throttle bodies and one is for the ECU. So it was really easy to wire. I've got it down to just, like I said, 3 simple wires. You've got your 12 volt constant, 12 volt ignition switched, and a start signal wire. And of course, a NATS delete on the ECU. It would not work without a NATS delete. Sorry for the messy interior and all the wiring everywhere. Like I said, the car's not really finished. But next on the list of things that you will need for your VQ swap. So depending on what you're going to, depending on how you wire it, you are most likely not going to have gauges. Sorry, that's the issue, especially a speedometer. So the way a Nissan 350Z VQ35 works is they, so the way the VQ35 works is they actually get their speed sensor signal from the differential. So you will end up needing, I'm going with some aftermarket electronic digital gauges, not mechanical. I don't have them all with me right now, but you will need to convert to gauges, and the motor isn't really going to have any outputs. So what I did was I drilled and tapped, like this is for the coolant temperature. There's going to be one down here for your oil pressure and speedometer GPS. Alright, so my camera overheated there a little bit. What I was talking about with the gauges, so you have a couple options. One of the easiest options is actually this OBD2 port, okay? If you make sure to rewire your OBD2 port back in, because some companies like RacePack or some eBay, AliExpress companies sell RacePack style gauge clusters that plug in directly OBD2 and will read OEM values off of your ECU. So you can get things like RPM, oil pressure, oil temperature if your ECU reads it, coolant temperature, just, you know, the important stuff you want to know. You probably still won't get speedometer unless you get one of those that has GPS speedometer, or if you get GPS speedometer aftermarket. You can go with Dakota Digital or I think Speed Hut sells a aftermarket GPS sending unit, but you will need some kind of speed signal. So what I'm doing is I'm just running digital gauges. These are some JAGS kit. It was like all 5 or 6 gauges in a kit. I don't have them all here right now. They're at my upholsterer's shop with my dash. But what I'm doing is I'll be running an external coolant temperature sensor. So I wired this, or I drilled and tapped my housing for a coolant temp sensor. I'll drill and tap my oil housing or put a T-fitting on my oil housing for an oil pressure sensor. I have a GPS sending unit that I'll mount under my dashboard for the GPS speed for my speedometer. For tachometer, I don't remember off the top of my head, but I do know there is a wire I can tap off the harness for tach signal, or maybe I can just tap into like a cylinder 1 injector or something like that. Pretty easy to get a tach signal. You just follow some forums. Let's see, I think that's it. Another very useful thing I use, I have to find my laptop, but when I got my engine tuned by Jason, he sent me a cable that plugs into my OBD2 and plugs USB into my laptop, and I run a program called Nissan Datascan 2. Nissan Datascan 2 will connect to my engine when the ECU is on, and it'll give me all live data that the motor outputs. It gives me things like wideband signal, RPM, temperature, oil temperature. Every sensor input this VQ has, it tells me live readouts of timing. I can adjust timing, all kind of crazy stuff with that program. Here's one of those bleeder valves I was referring to before. This is just a cheap O'Reilly's plastic cap bleeder valve, but it does the job. It's worked very well. And so I'll put a couple extras back here when I finish that. But anyway, I think that is all for today's video. If there's anything else that you guys need to know, please comment down below and let me know if there's anything you need to know more on a VQ swap. So if you guys like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.